being a person who grew up in a conservative Muslim background and then having the identity of being queer, there was never a time that I thought the two would gel or be kind of like held together in the same identity. So for a long time, I rejected my faith. My name is Farina. I identify as a queer Muslim. My pronouns are she and her, and I live in Barry, South Wales. There were times growing up in my life where I absolutely had to choose between either one identity or another. I grew up in a really conservative Muslim family, and so being anything other than heterosexual was not an option. So my life was panned out for me already. I would do my education thing, go into work, have a husband more than likely chosen for me, and then my life as a wife would continue. And so exploring my sexuality in any way or being anything other than heterosexual was never an opportunity for me. There was never a space for that. And so it was very much a secret, very much something that I kept closeted for a lot of years. I left home around 19 to go to university, and at that point, because I wasn't under my family's shadow any longer, I was able to explore my sexuality a little bit more, have relationships, have conversations, meet other queer people. And at the time, it was great for me because I was learning about lots of different things, like how I feel towards women, it's not wrong, and that I don't have to pretend, and I can say the words out loud without having to worry about it. So for a very long time, I didn't really go toward faith, just because during that moment, I suppose I just felt like I can't go through that because I've kind of chosen this path. I've chosen this path of following my sexuality. Coming back to faith and how that journey started actually happened a few years ago. And it happened when I found out about a group called Hidayah. So Hidayah are a national organisation, and we effectively help support LGBT plus queer Muslims in reconciling their identity of faith with their sexuality identity. And so during that time, I was exploring the kind of like looking back at faith again on my own terms. Perhaps it was because I felt finally okay with myself from a sexuality point of view that I thought I could now look back and see, well, what's the faith thing about? And then I suppose at that same time, you know, perhaps it was the case that God gave me a sign and said, well, look, here is this organisation that will do just that for you. It will allow and give you that space and those resources that you might need, and the right language for you to choose as well, and to try and explore faith in your own time without having to let go of your sexuality. Growing up, I never had the whole kind of, I'm going to get married, I'm going to settle down and have lots of babies. Suppose because I knew growing up that I felt very differently, that I knew that I wasn't going to have that kind of like big white wedding or whatever people would think about, or red dress wedding, because that's what's traditional in Muslim weddings. Muslim marriages, I would probably say, are mixed with a hell of a lot of culture. And so there are lots and lots of things from a cultural thing that would be very norm, but is not necessarily the religious side of things. So from a religious side of things, you don't have a church-like place where you always have to have the wedding to take place. It could even happen in your own home. It needs to happen by an official. So that person needs to officiate the nikah. So the nikah is almost like, I suppose you would call it the vows, if you were to liken it to like a Christian marriage. Muslim families are predominantly quite large. The weddings and then the kinds of, you know, celebrations are usually quite big as well. But it doesn't always have to be that way. So the nikah within itself could be quite a small affair. Literally, like I said, it could just happen at home. It could be that traditionally the person isn't apart and they're in the same room, and then the kind of like official, like, are you happy by both parties, could again happen in the same room. And then you can just carry on watching a bit of TV if that is what you want to do, you know. So there's no kind of official this. That's why I was saying there's a lot of culture mixed in with the religion side of things. So from a faith side of things, It's quite small if you literally just look at the bit about getting married, and then everything else is kind of like an extra on top. I knew that being married whilst being queer, I didn't see the two happening together, especially not having a Muslim wedding. I think because growing up all my life I was told that you can't be queer and you can't be Muslim. I never really had this upbringing where I thought to myself, well, I'm going to get married to my girlfriend one day. It was just never a thing. There was a time in my life, a bit of a dark time, where I did consider having a marriage of convenience. At the time I was having quite a lot of pressure from my mum because I was of age. I'd finished university, and so I was working, and there wasn't really a lot going on for me, according to her. And so naturally the next thing to do would be to get married. And so I opened up the possibility of getting married, but of course to a man. And then I did actually explore, and there are lots of sites still up there now as well, for marriage of conveniences for people that come from a faith background, be it that they're Muslim or another faith. And they effectively look for people of the opposite gender who may also be LGBT plus, for them to get married and have a marriage of convenience, just to, I say just to, that doesn't seem as big, but to appease their family. It 100% wouldn't have worked for me, without a doubt. But I suppose that speaks volumes to where I was in that time in my life, for me to think that that was my only option, for me to think that, well, my parents or my family are not going to get off my back until I get married. I can't see myself settling down with a heterosexual man because, you know, there's so many other things within that I just wouldn't be able to offer him. It wouldn't be fair on that person either. So then why don't I link up with a person who's going through the same situation as me? Well, then at least there'll be that mutual understanding that that person is gay and I am queer, and that's why we're getting together. And so within that, we can then also explore other relationship, which I know is not massively healthy, but then it would have meant that at least I could have still been a queer behind doors, and then he could have been a queer behind doors, or you could have even gone out on the scene together and be like, how do you know each other? Well, we're married. So yeah, I'm laughing about it now, but you know, there are people that do this in real life, and it's extremely sad that you've got to go down that kind of path and do that, but it's a very real reality for a lot of people. How I feel about marriage now is massively different to how I felt about marriage before. Being with a person of faith now has given me the opportunity to explore what it's like to be open with my faith, with my partner, and being finally able to talk to someone, what does it look like to be of faith and to be queer, and what does that look like within a relationship as well, has really solidified for me what I want going forward. I want faith to be involved. To be LGBT plus and to be Muslim is, you know, it's always been a thing, but I feel like in the last few years visibility is a lot higher. And so naturally, because visibility is a lot higher, people see themselves represented in society. They feel as though things like marriage is more of a thing that is accessible for them, and they can go down that path. And even like my own friend who is the chair of Hidayah is actually recently officiated to do nikahs, to do Muslim weddings. So if I get married, then I'll know definitely who to go to. I've got so many things to say to queer Muslims that are in the closet, and the first thing to say is you're not alone. And the next thing to say is that you are wanted and you are very, very much loved. And well done for feeling all the things that you feel, because that within itself is a very proud moment. The other things that I would say is don't rush. Don't rush to tell someone. Don't feel like you've got to do something or be a certain way or have a certain haircut or dress a certain way in order for you to be more gay or be more queer. And when you are ready, if you are ready at all, feel free to come out and to tell people about it. And there are organizations out there like Hidayah who can help you in your journey. And even if you're in the closet or whatever you want to call it for the rest of your life and you don't do anything about it, just knowing yourself that you are not wrong and that you are loved and that you are right have that in your heart and live with that, if nothing else at all.